probably have most of the people here and we're ready to get started. So I am Linda Shai and I normally run the colloquium, but it is our very first one. So welcome back everyone, or welcome to Cornell if this is your first time with the lecture series. And to kick us off properly, Professor Jeffrey Chusid, who is the chair of the department, would like to say a few words. Jeff?
Greetings, everyone, and thank you, Linda. So the lecture series is, the colloquium lecture series is also known as Planning Futures. It's the more practice-oriented of the two lecture series we run in the fall in theory, but in truth, it is mostly aimed at the issues that we think are current and exciting, whether they're being explored by faculty and students in the college or by practitioners in the field or other scholars. And it is an opportunity for us to meet around these issues and talk and get to see each other and ask questions and interact on a weekly basis. So it's a pleasure to have Linda take over the colloquium this year, and she's been shaping it around some of the critical issues that we are facing as planners these days. And I think there's between that and the research seminar, a really exciting list of visitors to the college. And otherwise, I'm going to turn it back over to Linda and thank you again for doing this.
Alviano, can you turn on the share feature for everyone?
Yep, we're good again.
Great. Whoops, that's not the lecture. Why are we now viewing George's slides? How did this happen?
One second. Hey George, could you stop sharing your?
There.
Okay.
Okay. So welcome everybody to the colloquium. This is Sibley Hall, and if you were in Ithaca, this is where we would be studying. And so first of all, welcome to all the Asia students for whom this is very late at night. And if you were here, actually what you would have done is you would walk through the side, through under the new Milstein Hall, which is our pizza box architecture studios that connect some of the historic buildings that are here. You go under that awning through these eyeballs. Now am I no longer sharing? Is anybody else trying to share? Or I'm not really sure what's happening here.
No.
Sorry about that. Okay, so you walk through here and you go through these eyeballs that are quite strange, and you go into the building through this fantasy land of concrete form. And then you would end up in Milstein Auditorium, where we would all be sitting crowded in the world's most uncomfortable seats. So I guess one of the benefits of us all being online is that we all get to be together virtually, and hopefully you are all much more comfortably seated wherever you might be. But so one part is, I'm showing these slides to just bring us into a sense of actually being together in an imagined space where this becomes our community for the rest of the semester, and every Friday we have a chance to all be together as a department. And the other reason I wanted to kind of bring us to a sense of place is that we are here in this landscape that is Ithaca and the broader communities around us. This is taken from McGraw Tower, where the bells chime. And these are the ancestral lands of the Cayuga Nation and the peoples who lived here for thousands of years before they were violently dispossessed of this land. And many of them have been pushed out, most of them pushed out of New York entirely or out of the United States. Many of them are now in Canada. And so I would think it's important that we recognize that we are on the ancient lands, the ancestral lands of the Cayuga people, and honor their tradition even today. And one of the best ways we can honor is not just to say that we're on their land and we're occupying that land, but to really think about what it means to be occupiers of land and what that means for our actual planning practice moving forward and how we think about history and our place in that history. So with that in mind, we have a lot of crises in our contemporary world. There's a lot of things to react to and to think about, to discuss, to talk through as a community of people interested in cities and place these days. There's so many crises that have been happening this past year, and they're really reflections of long-standing crises that really are just boiling over this year. So the lecture series that I've helped pull together, and many of the faculty have designed the individual sessions within them, are about issues related to the issues that we see, as Jeff suggested. So there are issues on economic development and fiscal crises that cities are facing, and equity and justice and all of that. We kick off, let me move my head here. We kick off with two sessions, one in each of the colloquium and the research seminar, that are really about student showcases of their work. And so I'm really delighted that a number of students from 4 different groups, 2 workshop classes, a research project, and Design Connect are going to be presenting today's session. And then in the first research seminar, we will have 2 presenters. Yuan Shuo was a PhD student in the department. He just started a position in Zhejiang University, and Austin Aldag is currently a PhD student. The 2 of them are both working with Professor Mildred Warner, and they'll be talking about fiscal crises in the past recession and how we can learn from both US and Chinese cities. And they'll have a discussant from Clark University as well. So again, showing a lot of how, as you'll see in today's presentations, a lot of the ongoing work that students are doing really are very topically oriented to the issues of the day. And then moving forward, I'm going to shrink myself. Okay, here we go. Moving forward, we have a series of lectures around race, capitalism, and segregation in suburbs. That's a more historical look, as well as then from Ilana Prius. She works for I guess she has her own consulting firm, but she advocates for, I think, Black-owned businesses and manufacturing districts, and how do we have manufacturing and industrial economic development that is equitable and just. And then a lecture from Julian Aguiman. Oh, I'm sorry, we have misspelled his name here. There's an N there. Julian Aguiman from Tufts University, who's a well-known professor who talks about just sustainabilities and how do we think about green and brown agendas simultaneously together. And in line with that, there's a dialogue with regional research seminar and research and practice. And so a number of these these discussions and research are as much about presenting research as methods, but they are also conversations about what are the theoretical perspectives that we use to understand how we should practice. And so we now have a session where there will be at least 2 Indigenous Native American researchers, students at the master's and PhD levels, who are doing really wonderful work on Indigenous knowledge and how they can uplift tribal communities. We have one that Professor Nick Klein, and another guest from the University of Chicago, Kate Lowe. They'll be talking about transportation and qualitative research methods rather than quantitative methods. And then we have one from Mark Rubel and Xavier Risurto, who are looking at the commons in research, both around fisheries as well as in more urban settings. And so a lot of these are from less traditional realms of planning knowledge, and they're really pushing us to ask, how does the kinds of traditional approaches that we take to understanding research and practice shape then what we think about what we should be doing? And then finally, to wrap up the semester, we have a wonderful session from Leslie Wu, who is a entrepreneur, and she was a CEO. She's very familiar with the very development-oriented side of private sector development. And she's also now at an NGO and really asking, how do we shape development that becomes that responds to the Black Lives Matter and climate crises and all of the equity and justice issues that we have. And Professor Nima Kudba will wrap us up for a colloquium with a session, I think, that we'll be talking about navigating and bridging the division between research and practice. And then on the regional seminar, the regional science research seminar side, we will have a session where two professors who are very closely involved in the IPCC, which is the global climate document that gets produced, talking about how that is produced and the future of that. And finally, a guest lecture from very well-regarded Professor Siqi Zheng from MIT, talking about air pollution and behavior in Beijing in China. So I really hope to see many of you there. We have an exciting lineup of speakers. And without further ado, I want to kick us off to the session that we have today. So today we have 4 presentations, and we'll begin with Professor George Frantz's workshop in Salamanca in New York, and then we'll move on to Professor Mildred Warner's research project that she has about age-friendly communities in Tompkins County. And then Professors Jeffrey Chusid and Mitch Glass, they have a workshop around MidTown in Cleveland, and we'll close with a presentation from students in Design Connect, where they operate their own many workshops and studios from communities around the state that are in need of assistance. So these are 4 lovely projects. I want to remind everyone, of course, that they are showing, most of them except for Professor Mildred Warner's project, most of them are showing work from last spring, when in March we had to all go online. So many of them could not do the kinds of engagement and site visits and field visits. And of course, this impacted what they do. So it's a bit, I think it'll be a little bit different from what we normally see, although perhaps indicative of what's going to be the case this fall. I'd like to save all Q&A during this session for the very end. And then after each presentation, they'll each have 15 minutes. We'll have 10 minutes of breakout groups so that there are more chances for everyone to have a place to speak. And then we'll come back out for a collective discussion at the end. I'm going to keep track of time for each of our presenters, and when you have 2 minutes left, I'm going to ding my little bell, and when you hear a second time, that means you have spent 15 minutes, and if you hear it a third time, I'm going to start talking at you to get off the screen, okay? So be on the search for that. Any concerns or questions before we begin? All right, without further ado, can I invite whoever is leading the slides for Professor Frantz's class to start sharing their screen?
Okay, we there? Okay, yeah, again, I'm going to be introducing the project on behalf of Liz Feit and Quinn Kellen, but on the surface, the project was a downtown revitalization plan for the city of Salamanca, New York. However, this project, the more important aspect of this project, beyond being a downtown revitalization project, is that it occurred within the context of 270 years of conflict over land, sovereignty, and literally the national survival of the Seneca Nation of Indians. Linda, thank you for that notation regarding the ancestral lands of the Cayuga Nation. The Seneca Nation are known as the keepers of the western door of the Haudenosaunee. They are the cousins to the immediate west of the Cayuga Nation. Okay, they have held on over 270 years to at least fragments of their land, and the city of Salamanca is actually on leased land within the Allegheny territory of the Seneca Nation of Indians. And again, the Seneca Nation, the Cayuga Nation of Indians, you must understand, are sovereign nations recognized by the United States. Okay, so, but for 270 years, there's been acrimony over treaties, and particularly in Salamanca over the last 100 years, acrimony over terms of the lease that the city has with the Seneca Nation, the payments or non-payments of leases, payments, and fraud that finally culminated in a new lease in 1991. Again, between the city of Salamanca, New York, and the Seneca Nation of Indians within which territory the city actually lies. So today we're actually seeing a new collaborative relationship evolving between the Seneca Nation of Indians and the city of Salamanca, and they're partnering to address things like economic development and the downtown revitalization of the city of Salamanca. The class focused on really just three things in this whole process of developing the revitalization plans. Focus on Main Street, which is north-south, that yellow axis, and focus on the Ohio Allegheny River. And also focus on Salamanca's unique location and potential as a tourism destination in the future. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Liz Veit, who will take over for the river team in the project. So Liz. Liz, are you there? Are you on mute?
I don't see her. I see Quinn.
Oh no. Okay, I will start off doing it then. Liz actually is not in Ithaca, and I noticed last night there were some issues with her internet, so maybe she can't make it online today. But anyway, the goals of the river team were to establish new walking biking trails atop the North Bank levee of the Ohio Allegheny River, create direct access to the river via an existing trail system, connect Main Street and the regional Pat McGee bike pedestrian path by 2025. Open at least one restaurant cafe overlooking the river with outdoor seating by 2030. Again, the river splits downtown Salamanca. It is a major visual feature within the downtown area, and like many, many rivers in the USA, there's no access to it, okay? And finally, establish a river tour departing from Main Street and disembarking near the Seneca Allegheny Casino, which is about 1.5 miles away at the western end of Salamanca proper. Deliver the riverfront as a recreational resource for Salamanca and the Allegheny territory in general, and also as a tourism destination. Again, the river is there, it's a resource, it's not being exploited. And finally, upgrade the stormwater system with green infrastructure to better control stormwater runoff volume and treat urban runoff pollutants into the Allegheny River. Some of the specific projects, the Southeast Boat Launch, which would be right next to downtown, and Main Street, which would be the opportunity to connect to the existing bike pedestrian trail system within Salamanca, as well as has room for a park and also a green stormwater management infiltration garden. A blue water trail. Downtown is here with the boat launch. People can canoe, kayak up and down the Allegheny River, okay? And it would encourage, the casino, by the way, is right here. So the boat launch and blue water trail could encourage visits from the casino, hotel, the Onosagwede Cultural Center here and the downtown, okay? And again, it's a way of getting people onto Main Street to shop, to go to restaurants, to promote economic revitalization on Main Street. Green infrastructure, again, the Allegheny River is actually has very high quality river very high water quality upstream of Salamanca proper. The river deteriorates as it runs through the city due to things like chemical contamination, brownfield sites, and other industrial wastewater discharges, as well as just urban runoff pollutants from streets, okay? So green infrastructure to both better control stormwater as well as improve the water quality of the Allegheny River. And okay, so that, the river team. And now I'm going to turn it over to Quinn Automodri, who will discuss the Main Street team's goals and recommendations. So Quinn, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was part of the Main Street team, and essentially we wanted to help stimulate revitalization in Salamanca, specifically using Main Street and through policy changes to the built environment, as well as programming, and not only increase the number of locally owned businesses, but also the diversity of industries present. We didn't want this to be a project that would essentially trap them into, you know, one type of business. We want to really open those possibilities up, create a more inviting street that would help to draw more people in. We have a few different possibilities that we'll have in this presentation. If you could, next slide, please. So right off the bat, the casino is one of the strongest businesses near Salamanca. So we really wanted to utilize that, and a short-term goal that we recommended was the establishment of shuttling services between the casino and downtown, helping to bring some of those customers from the casino over towards the downtown to help kickstart that economic stimulation, that economic revitalization. Next slide, please. We also wanted to improve the aesthetic, but we wanted to do something that would not only be very affordable, given that it is a small town upstate New York, but also that would help to develop the community. And we felt that pocket parks, pop-up parks would be a great way to do that, informal and homemade seating, fun designs that would also draw in a younger demographic, which would also be very beneficial, improve the overall aesthetic of downtown, again, in an affordable way that would help to, again, keep that community development going on. Next slide, please. We also want to use policy to attract new businesses in combination with storefront revitalization. The revitalization of storefronts is a bit more complicated, given that a lot of these buildings are older. Some of them have fallen into disrepair. However, through policy, we came up with a few different suggestions for ways to incentivize new and smaller businesses to come to Salamanca that would take some of the economic barriers away from them and help make the Main Street a more appealing place to start to bring some of those businesses back. Next slide, please. Additionally, in terms of another long-term goal, we wanted to really revamp the entirety of Main Street. We came up with a few different options to make the environment more walkable, more visually pleasing, introduce some mixed uses such as bike lanes and the aforementioned pocket parks, while also reducing the road to take away some unnecessary space that was being used for street parking, and give that over to sidewalks, to trees, to make it a more inviting environment that would also be more conducive towards people, say, spending a Sunday afternoon walking between shops, and therefore spending a little bit more time, a little bit more money in the Main Street area. Next slide, please. Another long-term goal was the development of the artistic environment. There's quite a few artists and art groups in Salamanca. And so we felt that helping to further develop that and provide even more concrete resources to not only continue what's currently there, but also expand it in the future had a lot of potential to make Salamanca potentially, a small art community, which again is going to draw a lot of people, help to further develop the connection between the already existing economic anchor of the casino, where there is a precedent for using casinos as a means to sell art, and having that connection built up more there, while giving artists who maybe are newer or do not have as many resources the ability to have residential and studio space in Salamanca. Next slide. Yeah. Oh, you're muted. You're still muted.
Working on it. Sorry, guys. Excuse me. Okay. The project was put on hold due to COVID-19. Actually, Cornell shut down campus a week after our March 7th community forum. So we had to go online. We were not able to make the final community forum presentation in May. Hopefully we can do it in January and February. And the primary reason for that is the community forum on March 7th was quite surprising. It was, essentially a presentation of inventory and analysis and opening it up to question and answers. What occurred there was a fairly frank, but nonetheless cordial discussion amongst members of the Seneca Nation of Indians, also business owners within downtown, Anglo residents and business owners, and again, frank but cordial discussion of past history of conflict. But actually what happened, it turned to become very positive. And at the end of the forum, there was discussion of having a much larger community forum at some point in the future, where again, people can get together and talk about not just downtown revitalization in Salamanca, but how the Seneca Nation and Salamanca and everybody can work together on issues, not just downtown revitalization, but issues that extend way beyond revitalization, and in a very collaborative atmosphere. So that's why going back January, February, in my opinion, is very important. So with that, thank you very much. And again, I guess we'll hold questions till the very end of the session. So turn it over to you, Linda.
Thank you so much, George and Quinn. You guys were exactly on the money with your 15 minutes. So round of applause. You have your icons, you can do that. I think, George, that just demonstrates so nicely how oftentimes our classes, our workshops are a way to ask questions that are a bit more difficult sometimes to do in the public sector, but opens a space where controversial conversations can be had that can change some of those dynamics. And it looks like you guys were able to do that. Quinn, could you introduce yourself in terms of your year and your program?
Certainly. My name's Quinn Otto-Modry. I am a senior in URS.
Terrific. So George's workshop, I believe, was an environmental land use urban design workshop. There's a series of those that can come under that umbrella. So those of you who are interested can take that, and it has both undergraduates and master's students who are able to do it. Wonderful. So next we have Professor Mildred Warner's team who are sharing research that she has been leading. And I'll again ask the students to please introduce yourselves, your year, and your program.
Hello, everyone. We're the Promoting Age-Friendly Communities team. My name is Lynn Ka'u, and I'm a senior in URS. I'm joined by my teammates Grace McCartney, Savannah Lim, and Jeremy Xu. I think they will introduce themselves once we get to their part of the presentation. So, over the summer, we worked with the Age-Friendly Center for Excellence through the Engaged Cornell program. The Age-Friendly Center for Excellence is a coalition of local governments and organizations working with the New York Academy of Medicine to make Tompkins County an age-friendly community. We work with the guidance of Mildred Warner and Shui Zhang, who were our faculty advisors for our internship through Engaged Cornell, as well as with the guidance of Esther Greenhouse and Terry Reinman from the Age-Friendly Center. So each of us in the team focused on different aspects of promoting age-friendly communities. Grace and I looked through different frameworks about age-friendly planning and synthesized them to analyze comprehensive plans from the municipalities in Tompkins County. Meanwhile, Jeremy looked at the multi-agency response that addressed food insecurity during the pandemic, and Savannah looked at the spatial distribution of food and pharmacy services, among other things, by creating maps of Tompkins County. Our goal was to analyze the assets that are already in the county and to see where age-friendly planning might be needed, but also where age-friendly planning has also had successes. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Grace, who will explain more about our framework.
Hi all, I'm Grace. I'm a junior in the URS program. And the essence of my task this summer was to gather information about current assets of age-friendly services, programs, and infrastructure with the goal of figuring out just how age-friendly different communities in Tompkins County are. So I had two types of information to conduct this assessment, which I did with Lynn. We had comprehensive plans that municipalities have adopted and a survey conducted by Professor Warner and Dr. Zhang earlier this year. So I'm going to talk briefly about how we decided to process these two types of information, and then Lynn is going to go over our results a little bit. So we first began the process by asking ourselves what method we would use to analyze this data. Next slide. So initially we used the domains set out by the Tompkins County Age-Friendly Center for Excellence to read through a comprehensive plan and pull out parts that related to these points. So you can see they have prioritized social determinants of health and health equity and the interface of built environment with social and well-being, as well as outdoor spaces and physical and mental well-being, with many more. So we reviewed a comprehensive plan just pulling out parts related to these domains. And then we realized we could really broaden the depth of our analysis, and we wanted to ensure that it was universal. So next slide. So we pulled in the UNICEF, WHO, and AARP. We included UNICEF because of their mission towards protecting children. We chose the WHO because of their efforts towards considering all stages of life. And we chose AARP because of their national advocacy for seniors. So these organizations cover a huge span of interests, both globally and nationally. And with this much broadened horizon, we actually revealed a new problem after adding these organizations, was that now we had too many levels to review the municipalities by. So our solution was to create a framework of domains that encapsulated the ideals above and those from the Center of Excellence that were previously listed. Next slide. So a big part of our synthesis process, looking at all these different lists, was to find common ideas across them. So here I have an example of how each organization has in one way or another prioritized outdoor spaces. So we looked for common aspects and considered the role of cross-agency collaboration in our synthesis. And now Lynn's going to talk a little bit about what that led to.
Yeah, so this is the list of domains that we ended up developing, and by combining these different standards, they're grouped into three larger categories of community, services, and land use. And we've subdivided them into specific things for our use in analysis. So under community, we have civic and social engagement, communication and information, respect, inclusion, and trust, business and work opportunities. Under services, we have transportation, health services, education, childcare services, and other services. Under land use, we have housing, neighborhood, built environment, open spaces, and recreation. So we created these subdomains to help us look for these crucial aspects of the three larger categories, but these subdomains themselves are not very firm. in fact, it's very common for the comprehensive plans to discuss facets of their communities that either transcend these boundaries or just focus on a few of them in particular. So in anticipation of this, we identified this missing domain of cross-agency collaboration, and we put it in the center to format the domains as a flower. So this is the flower in a more broader view. The flower groups these different aspects of analysis into the three broad categories. And we put cross-agency collaboration in the middle to highlight the fact that it overlaps with everything, and also to highlight that the fact that we found that cross-agency collaboration was very crucial in bringing different aspects of planning and views of an age-friendly community together into a real community. So this view of the flower highlights both the flexibility and our need to capture the fuller picture of the different comprehensive plans. However, we didn't really develop this by itself. We developed this at the same time while reading some comprehensive plans. So there was a feedback loop of trying to redo the framework and trying to look at the comprehensive plans. So in the end, I think we have this model that is very accommodating to all the different plans we have to look at, but it also has the specificity needed in the subdomains to be useful for analysis. As for the plan themselves, we have read through 3 towns at this point. We've read through Dryden, Lansing, and Newfield, and we're currently working on Enfield and Ulysses. And this is what we're going to continue to do in the fall. So in Tompkins County, there are 16 municipalities, and 14 of them have a municipal plan or something equivalent. So you see here, Lansing, Dryden, and Newfield are highlighted, and we started work on the townships because they have more robust planning infrastructure in general, and then we will be moving on to the villages and hamlets. So the comprehensive plans are standardized documents, and the information is relatively recent, but they do tend to focus on land use or more built environment aspects of planning. So last year in 2019, Professor Warner and Dr. Zhang sent out a survey to these municipalities to try and gather information on things that are not always on a plan. So these were in the categories of planning and participation, services, values, and attitudes. And we took the individual questions under these 3 categories of their survey and incorporated them back into our analysis that we can have a more fuller picture of the whole community instead of just the built environment aspects. So the one thing that we did find throughout all of this is that cross-agency collaboration is the key missing domain that links the different aspects of age-friendly communities, whether we think of it through having land use that's suitable for all ages, or having a community that respects everyone, or having services that can cater to everyone. So, and Jeremy, my teammate Jeremy will talk a bit about a specific case study about COVID-19 response that highlights this exact fact.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeremy. My summer project is about writing the best approach report on the multi-agency response to food insecurity issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. So when the COVID-19 was declared as a pandemic and it brought about challenges for food security, a number of community organizations in Tompkins County came together in response to this crisis. They coordinated in a new, exciting, and dynamic way to address food insecurity issues of both children and older adults. Next slide, please. So in this slide, I've listed some of the agencies that is involved in this best approach report. And that includes funders, transportation providers, food providers, and information providers. So they work together, and I interviewed some of these agencies to see how they responded to food access and distribution to meet the needs of the community during this pandemic. And we explored how they came together, what they did that was different, and what were some of the challenges and the lessons learned. Next slide, please. And we've actually covered a variety of topics in this best approach report, but what I really appreciate and would like to show today in this presentation is this incredible network of collaboration. Next slide, please. So this diagram of cross-agency collaboration demonstrates how a variety of organizations and agencies work together in terms of food access and distribution. Just as Grace and Lane has mentioned with their presentation in the flower model, the cross-agency collaboration is the key that brings all these together. And my research in this best approach report exactly provides trusted information to it. The diagram is complex, and for the sake of time, I'd just like to pick up 2 cases about it. Next slide, please. So the first one is Food Net Meals on Wheels. In the very beginning of this pandemic, FoodNet came together with United Way and delivered thousands of meals to people. They also partnered with the food bank, have delivered some emergency meal boxes, and with the support by the county office for the agent, FoodNet were able to procure some shelf-stable meals and deliver out to clients. Next slide, please. And the county office for the agents, one of the key players in this collaboration. They worked with FoodNet to provide meals to people, and they also coordinated with Food Bank of Southern Tier for food delivery, and they also had a list of volunteers to help people do their grocery shopping. Next slide, please. So from these media agents' response and collaboration, you can see the important role of partnership in addressing some key barriers of community engagement. More specifically, the barriers in communication, coordination, finance, and innovation could be handled by the corresponding relationships across our community. Next slide, please. And to sum up, in this Best Approach report, there are 6 key challenges for future practices that I'd like to share to you. Firstly, it's important to build up a pool of suitable volunteers because for some organizations, most of their volunteers are older adults and they had to reduce the delivery schedules due to a shortage of staff, while other agencies received a lot of requests to be a volunteer. As volunteers are an integral part of the entire system in food access and distribution, and they built up a solid component of human resources and power. So it's really essential to develop a more comprehensive structure in volunteer management. And the challenge of social connection is one of the common issues that needs to be addressed. A lot of organizations were committed to supporting the mental health needs of older adults during this pandemic. And this brings to the topic of technology. It will be very helpful to teach older adults how to use simple technology and to make their lives much easier. And I'd also like to mention the importance of collaboration. As I showed the diagram of cross-agency in the previous slides, we could see that the network of partnership makes the whole system stronger and more reliable. And the geography and transportation is another thing we need to consider. We need to explore new ways to address the transportation needs of people, especially in the rural areas. Last but not least, on a community and even global basis, food insecurity and health inequity are a long-term issue that need to be addressed by the joint efforts of our society. And that's what I'd like to share in my summer project. And my teammate Savannah will talk about her summer project about GIS mapping.
Hi, my name is Savannah Lim, and I'm a senior in the URS department. So I was the Geographic Information Systems intern this summer, which meant that I made visual maps to represent data I thought would be relevant in aiding the Tompkins County Age-Friendly Task Force in their mission. I'm a visual learner, so this job was especially interesting for me. So initially, when thinking about accessibility for older individuals, I brainstormed with Professor Warner and other members of the task force on people's needs on a day-to-day basis, which have only been exacerbated by the pandemic. I decided to take a look at senior housing in Tompkins County, location of grocery stores and food pantries, pharmacy locations, and medical office locations. I looked at this data separately, overlapped, and then drew some conclusions from my work. Next, please. The first map is one that compares market rate and subsidized senior living to grocery stores. So I buffered these points by 2 miles. The pink buffer zones represent different grocery stores. The yellow buffer zones represent market rate senior living. The dotted circles represent the subsidized senior living buffer zone. I wanted to show the lack of grocery store access by representing the subsidized senior living with the dotted circles to represent empty space. So as you can see, market rate senior housing has access to far more groceries and amenities than the subsidized rate senior housing. Next, thank you. A similar story. So the dotted circle again represents the subsidized senior living buffer zone, and the blue buffer zone is represented the blue buffer zone represents the pharmacy buffer zones. So most of the pharmacy buffer zones are clustered closely together in the center of Tompkins County. And what we can glean from this is that market rate senior housing has access, again, to far more pharmacies and amenities than the subsidized rate senior housing. Next map, please. So with this map, I was curious to see where the pharmacy stores and grocery stores overlapped and didn't overlap, so I made this map. As we can see, both services are clustered in the middle of Tompkins County near Ithaca and Lansing. Since the pandemic, delivery from these pharmacies has become essential. So outside of Ithaca and Lansing, there's barely any access to pharmacies. This is a really big deal. Next map, please. My penultimate map represents senior accessibility to medical offices. I wanted to show the lack of medical office access by representing the subsidized senior living with the dotted circles to represent empty space. And most medical offices, as we can see, are clustered in the middle of Tompkins County. So again, market rate senior housing has access to far more doctor's offices and other services than the subsidized rate senior housing. Next map, please. For my last map, I wanted to take a look at food accessibility in Tompkins County and see really where grocery stores and food pantries were in relation to each other and how accessible fresh produce really was. I was pleasantly surprised to see that many food pantries were filling up areas where there was limited access to grocery stores and fresh produce. I thought this was really interesting, and it seems like the Southern Tier Food Bank and others are already aware of these issues and are filling these gaps. Next, please. So in conclusion, there is a lack of senior living in Danby and Enfield. The food pantries are really populating areas with no grocery stores, but really more food access is needed. Market rate senior housing is way closer to services like medical offices, pharmacies, and grocery stores compared to subsidized rate senior housing. And we also think that delivery through cross-agency collaboration really needs to be a key part of future work around age-friendly business practices. So we just want to give a big thank you to our Professor Warner, our postdoc Shir Zhang, Terry, Esther, and everyone else in the task force. And thank you, Professor Shire, for hosting us.
Wonderful job, guys. Really terrific with the research and so timely as well. I think one of my questions when we get to that point would be, what is the next steps on this, and how are you going to be impacting people's practices on the ground? But that's great to see. Next we have Professors Mitch Glass and Jeffrey Chusid. And can you begin to share your screen?
Yeah, I think Mike Oki is going to do that, but before he starts, I'll just give a couple-minute overview. My name is Mitch Glass. I'm a visiting critic in the Department of City and Regional Planning. I taught this workshop in the spring with Jeff Chusid, and we had about 13 students over 4 teams, and you're going to hear from 3 of those teams today. MidTown Cleveland is an area of Cleveland east of downtown that comprises about 5 neighborhoods. It doesn't encompass all of the neighborhoods. There are about 2,000 residents within MidTown itself. It's basically a CBD district that was created in the 1980s. It's an area that's severely impacted by redlining policies, urban renewal, and loss of manufacturing jobs over the years. So really a place that's been down on its luck. But what happened about 10 years ago was that the city and the state of Ohio built a world-class BRT line right through the community and connected downtown to the west and Cleveland University Circle to the east. University Circle is a place where Case Western Reserve University is. It's a place where Cleveland Clinic is. It's a place with a lot of money, huge institutions, cultural institutions. And downtown has seen a rejuvenation based on this BRT line. Lots of investments really on the bookends with MidTown in between, not really seeing some of those benefits. So we had a client in CDC in MidTown. Their name is MidTown Cleveland Inc. And they asked us to take a look at the community outreach and aspirations that they received in 2018 and 2019 through some really interesting community outreach. And really our goal was to translate those needs and desires into physical form. So that's what you'll be seeing today. Mike, go ahead.
All right, hey everyone, I'm Mike O'Key, and I'm a second year MRP. I'll be presenting on behalf of my group, which consists of myself, Haley Maury, and Jing Yu He, also second year MRPs. So thank you, Mitch, for that great introduction. This was a phenomenal project to work on, and I'll tell you all very quickly kind of about the nuances in our process and trying to make sure that we developed a very equitable, a very resilient plan that was very personal to Midtown Cleveland and not necessarily kind of our own vision for space. So like I said, we'll walk you through kind of the story of the neighborhood and expound on what Mitch said. We'll take you through our process of kind of analyzing the strengths of the site, the weaknesses, and some of those opportunities. And then we'll take you through the 3 sites that we actually designed and how those are interconnected both to the vision that MidTown Cleveland had for their neighborhood, as well as the vision of the greater Cleveland area. All right, so like Mitch touched on, the area is very historic. It has some really amazing architecture that you'll see come up in a lot of our proposals. A lot of it had really fallen into disrepair, but a lot of it was very much held near and dear to the hearts of the people that still reside in the area. So it was very important to kind of revitalize that, keep it, but make sure that it had a future in the neighborhood. So we started out, of course, by doing a site analysis, analyzing some of the recent developments that had come into the neighborhood, and using those as a catalyst for what could be, and mixing those as well with the historic sites. So there are some new hotels, there's a lot of new businesses as well. There's a new market that we spent a lot of time in that has really great food and really activated the neighborhood, and we wanted to know how we could expand on the new developments that had come in. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure we had in the background of all of our plans was that we're 3 different individuals. We all consider ourselves urban planners, and we were foraying into urban design. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't let kind of our own perceptions overshoot what the neighborhood wanted. And the way that we kind of kept ourselves in check was that MidTown Cleveland had hosted a forum or a listening party where they had kind of solidified a list of what the community prioritized, and we were able to consistently cross list and go back and check, okay, we want to propose this space here. Is that what the community said that they wanted? We want to propose this development here. Is this what the community said that they wanted? So it was a really, really great lesson in kind of being remote, doing a lot of the work here in Ithaca, and every time we wondered, is this the most appropriate thing to be doing because we couldn't have as much contact with people as we'd like to, we were able to refer back to that list of their priorities and make sure that they aligned. So more site analysis, and I'll kind of get to how we chose these specific 3 sites, but as you'll see, they're not contiguous, but we had a plan to make them. And then we gave them names based on a distinct characteristic of them. So we have Asiatown, which is the current name of the area. We have Bushman, based on historic warehouse. And then we have Main Street, based on the concentration of a lot of different services and businesses that are central to MidTown. And then we just did your kind of typical strengths, weaknesses, and analysis. And like I said, we referred them back to what the community had voiced, and what the community was going to hold the development accountable for, rather than kind of what we just saw being there. We wanted to make sure that we did this for them. We wanted to make sure that we met the needs of the client and the community, which is very much a difficult but really, really well-learned, really valuable lesson for us as urban planners. So we continue to do that design or that process for all 3 sites. And then we arrived at kind of our final proposals. So for Asiatown, we wanted to keep the suburban, very small character of the neighborhood. It was very important because of the multi-generational households that are there, that they have single family homes, that they could have that those relationships continue in. So we looked at case studies for that, and then we proposed doing so. And we also saw that there was a lack of green space, but a lot of people had green thumbs in the neighborhood and would make little pocket gardens where possible. So you definitely want to integrate that into the design as well. So you'll see that there's a lot of green space in this area. You'll also see how the railroad kind of serves as a barrier to separate the neighborhoods, and how we had to really work with that, take into account noise pollution, but also making sure that it no longer serves as a barrier, but rather a connecting point. And here are just some renderings of that green space coming in, and that emphasis on single family homes and green space. The next neighborhood is actually across the track from Asiatown, has an entirely different feel. It's very industrial with some operating warehouses. So we kept looking at case studies for new infill that resembled old architecture of warehouses, and we proposed that in addition to a lot of redevelopment. So you have some existing site conditions, and you have what we proposed, interplaying both old buildings with new ones, as well as adding some green space to break up what is generally a very warehouse-intensive area. This is the largest building in it, and we kind of experimented with a mixed-use warehouse model that's actually not really common So if it were to be implemented, it would kind of be one of the first of its kind. We were really excited to kind of conceptualize what that would look like. The egress and ingress parts of the district were really important for us to focus on as well. So we just kind of conceptualized what that could look like. And we continue to kind of conceptualize what this hybrid model of a warehouse and residential and civic space and possibly education space would look like all in one large footprint. Right, and we have more. And then our final site was Midtown, or Main Street of Midtown. So this is actually where Midtown Inc. is located. So our client is located here, and a lot of services have co-located as well. And we really wanted to make that a hub for services in the neighborhood. So we continue to look at case studies, one locally in Ithaca, of how to mix residential in a way that's conducive to walking and making sure that pedestrians feel safe in order to access all those services on foot. So this is kind of its current footprint. This is what we proposed. We added a lot of residential and a lot of underutilized parking. And then we continue to conceptualize what it would look like to kind of take back a lot of that parking and take back a lot of that underutilized roadway and make it pedestrian friendly. And we just continue to kind of visualize what this could look like. And for the final time, I'll kind of hound in how important it was for us to continue to cross-reference what the residents of this area wanted, in addition to what Midtown Cleveland kind of cited as the needs for the area. We're pretty confident that we were able to do so despite all of the craziness that happened towards the end of the semester. So that's mine, Zingyu's, and Haley's project on Midtown Cleveland. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys are the only team presenting for Mitch's class, is that correct?
No, there's 2 more teams.
Oh, there's 2 more teams. Okay, sorry, there was silence and I wasn't sure if we were done.
5 minutes each. Yeah.
Okay, our team's up next, so I'll get our presentation shared. My name is Sam Coons. I'm a 4th-year graduate planning and landscape architecture student, and I was working this past semester with my teammates Chris and Kate. They'll get the chance to introduce themselves in just a moment. I think it's really great to hear Michael's presentation first, because we came to the table wanting to look at how Midtown was formed as a neighborhood, because historically the bounds of the neighborhood as it was given to us by Midtown Inc. Are relatively new, and they don't align particularly well with a lot of Cleveland's legislative and bureaucratic boundaries. Midtown as a neighborhood is divided into multiple legislative wards, different design districts in the planning department, and the various CDCs and philanthropic organizations that are working in this part of central Cleveland have each kind of taken different chunks of this area. And so we were interested in how the creation of Midtown is a product, in a way, of a fragmentation of built form and of communities. And then on the flip side of that, how we as planners and designers can come up with design strategies in the midterm range to think about how we restitch that fabric and restitch those communities when there is an active risk of gentrification along the Euclid Avenue corridor, where there's this rapid transit corridor. So to begin, just quickly running through how that came to be. At the turn of the century, in the early 1900s, there was no Midtown as we know it. Euclid Avenue was this dominant core corridor that had, it was a residential corridor dominated by large mansions of industrialists of the day. And to the north and south, there were residential subdivisions that were created essentially as a lot of these cities on the Great Lakes were, by real estate developers that were then settled. And today, to the north, these residential neighborhoods are the Huff neighborhood, and to the south is the Central neighborhood, which are both predominantly Black neighborhoods and predominantly low income. So by mid-century, you can see that Chester Avenue, north of Euclid Avenue, has been built to connect, to create essentially it's not an interstate, it's not a highway, but it is an at-grade limited access, but also it also begins to hollow out the residential core of Midtown. And so today, we see this built form, which is dominated by larger industrial and institutional uses. Most of that residential fabric is gone. And contemporary planning documents have pushed infill towards Euclid Avenue to create a street corridor, a street wall along Euclid. But the result of that is it's pushed all the parking requirements back towards Chester. And so the result of that is essentially the divide between the Huff neighborhood to the north and these new assets and investments going in along the Euclid corridor are physically being stretched and divided by parking. So I'll pass it over to Chris now.
Hello, my name is Chris Schutz. I'm a second year MRP student. These contemporary land use maps here show the effects of the planning and development history of the neighborhood. And most notably, there's a lack of housing and green space relative to industrial and commercial institutional uses. Next slide, please. Sam, next slide, please. Oh, there, thank you. Here's the full scope of our project area. We focused on the areas east of the rail corridor in yellow there, to 63rd, where Dave's Market is. That's what Mike talked about as the community hub grocery store here. It's new. And the area is located north and south of Chester Ave up to the Huff neighborhood up in the northeast. Next slide, please. From a design perspective, we're looking to establish a better connected neighborhood fabric that connects the Huff neighborhood to the northeast to Midtown, and then to enhance the connection between both sides of Chester Ave, where the bus rapid transit line is. Then from a development perspective, sorry, can you go back, Sam?
Yeah, sorry, Chris.
Okay. From a development perspective, focused on housing and green spaces, as well as small businesses and community spaces to complement the existing commercial and institutional activity that's in the neighborhood. Sam said we propose quick win and midterm interventions that then set the stage for further development. And a major piece of that strategy was choosing development sites that are owned by the city or local organizations that could leverage established community relationships and then also be acquired quickly.
Folks have about 2 minutes left.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate Flaherty. I'm a second year MRP, first year Masters of Landscape Architecture student. Going through our master plan here, we really sought to connect the residents in Midtown to both the neighborhoods of Huff and the commercial corridor across Chester. We did this through weaving in open community spaces on both sides of Chester through the creation of a greenway, streetscape infill of community and private commercial space on both sides of Chester, as well as additional residential building north of Chester near existing residents. Improvements to pedestrian safety and tree canopy across, along and across Chester. Next slide, please. This is a, sorry, Chris, you want to go? Or I'm sorry, Sam, you want to go?
No, you go ahead, Kate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a look at, it's north of Chester, some of the community commercial real estate that we've proposed, as well as some pedestrian safety enhancements. And this is a look at our, some of the residences that we are including to go along with the existing residences in the affordable housing tower that is there north of Chester, and a mixed use development. This slide shows a green space that we proposed along the Greenway in front of Dave's Market, as well as some additional like a parking in back through a parking garage, as opposed to kind of these vast swaths of parking taking up a lot of space in the neighborhood. Next slide. And this render shows pedestrian crossing across Chester going north. It shows improved pedestrian walkway, which honors some of Cleveland's murals, as well as urban gardening space, community commercial space, and food trucks for residents and employees in the area.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go on to the third team. Remember, 5 minutes, Rewa, please. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I am Reva and I'll be presenting our project on behalf of Gianni, Alex, Shertong and myself. Midtown was a thriving neighborhood in the past, but it suffered from disinvestment during urban renewal when densities drastically decreased. Now there is significant growth projected with new development proposed along Euclid Avenue, but it is important to ensure that this growth is equitable and meaningful to the long-term residents of the place. We knew that we would have to plan for including a mix of functions, social and developmental, but also ones targeted at celebrating the history of the community and enhancing the current assets that it has. Midtown is a predominantly Black neighborhood. It is characterized by significant vacancies on either side of the railway corridor that cuts across it, and really wide vehicular roads. Sparsely populated residential areas are pushed to the periphery, and there's a marked absence of tree cover and open public spaces. While selecting the sites to intervene, it became apparent that the railway corridor was a historical element that connected some key parcels together. Vacancies and adjacencies became the criteria for site selection. Our first site, Dave's Market, is the current community hub. The second, Warner Swayze, is soon to undergo mixed-use development, and the third is a dilapidated industrial complex surrounded by a sparse residential neighborhood. The main idea behind the final proposal was to tap activity at the hub located at Dave's and draw it out southward to the industrial complex, which is less active, with the rail corridor acting as the spine that channels this. All three sites are mixed use, but the dominant function of each changes. Site 1 is commercial and health, Site 2 is retail and housing, and Site 3 is for cultural and community functions. The master plan is a culmination of these ideas. Connectors enable movement from Dave's to the south. Small strategies such as curb extensions increase walkability, and traces of Midtown's industrial past are preserved through strategies like adaptive reuse. The first site was a reimagining of the existing hub at Dave's. We kept all the community functions such as the market and the Rainbow Center and added on to these. A series of small plazas now connected them together, and we relocated large parking lots and introduced new commercial space to densify the area. A vibrant pedestrian landscape facilitated easy transition into the next site. The second site is perhaps the most visible intersection in Midtown. It is where the Warner Swayze mixed-use project is currently proposed, and our intent was to leverage this to integrate additional program into that plan. Warner Swayze has a linear park in its plan, which we propose to extend along the entire length of the railway corridor, north to south. We wanted to transform how the railway is looked at and make it an opportunity rather than an obstruction. To help with this, we designed a series of commercial and shopping spaces under the elevated corridor that people could walk along, creating new opportunistic interactions. The functions from Leo's listening party come together at Site 3, which is presently an old industrial complex. We reprogrammed the site to become a center for community, culture, and history for neighborhoods around Midtown, not just limited to it. We decided to preserve the historic building that was covered in art and graffiti by the community and use adaptive reuse and phytoremediation techniques to make it useful again.
One
Mixed-use commercial spaces are proposed in the brick exterior, which open out into a pop-up market and an open-air amphitheater connected to the community center, Black History Museum, and a kitchen garden. This was linked to an affordable housing development on the other side of the rail through an underpass. This way, the commercial Dave's Market, the intimate community site, all become a part of a single integrated proposal held together by the railway that symbolizes the productive industrial past of MidTown. Yeah, so that was our project. Thank you.
Thanks, Rewa. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you, guys. You had a lot of wonderful work to present. And this is a beautiful set of images for a place I care a lot about. All right, and last but not least, we have Design Connect. And if Hannah and Laura could briefly explain what Design Connect is for our new students who are coming in.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah. I'm excited to introduce Design Connect today and speak about the unique opportunities it provides students to engage with surrounding municipalities. This is my second year working with Design Connect, and I'm joined by Tim Deem as co-chairs. He's not here today, but I'm joined by Laura, who was a project manager last semester, to talk about her experience working with Design Connect. Our presentation is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to be showing a lot of direct deliverables, but we're going to talk about kind of the process to Design Connect and how you can get involved this semester. So Design Connect is a student-run organization. What makes it different from other student organizations within AAP is that you get to class credit for your participation. It is really build your own adventure, and you can choose to take the course for 1 to 4 credits based on what you want to get out of the experience. There is a board as well as a faculty advisor. This year it is Michael Tomlin. So after the board decides the project, it's really handed off to project managers to take the lead. We are a resource for local municipalities and nonprofits in the upstate Finger Lakes region, meaning that we help our clients identify challenges, brainstorm ideas, and finally produce design solutions that can be used for grant applications or to move forward with their planning process. Lastly, and maybe most exciting, is that we bring together students from all over campus, often extending beyond AAP. So DEA, government, and of course architecture, landscape architecture, and planning students. Speaking personally, it was the first time I worked with students from the fine arts on the same deliverable, which I think is a very valuable and unique experience. Projects are typically broken up into 3 phases. First is the research phase, where you study the history of the site and community, do site assessments, and learn about local flora. You can see a site visit pictured here. Second, there's always a community engagement element. This will not be lost this year, which I'll speak to further. This is when students plan events that directly invite community members outside of their direct clients to give feedback and envision the future of the site. Here you can see the Amsterdam team created a board game to engage different ages within the design process. And lastly, the team will create renderings, budgets, whatever the team and client have decided upon as the final deliverables. Last year, I was a project manager, and one of the most exciting things about Design Connect is the ability to explore your creativity. This was the site we were working on, which was an underutilized vacant site, which was located in the floodplain. Owego has a history of detrimental flooding, and our project was to create an art park that could withstand floodwater. So these slides, the next slide shows our visioning process as well as the final master plan. The project was already funded through DRI, or Downtown Revitalization Initiative funding. So you can see some of the requirements here the client was asking for, such as seating and parking. We were able to integrate a local artist's work who does brick stamping into the walkways. Unfortunately, we were to do our planned community engagement event the week that things went online. So we could not fully, I think, explore some of our ideas. But along with the plan, the community engagement team produced a community engagement toolbox, which included pre-made social media posts, posters, and surveys for our partner to execute. And I'd be happy to speak about the details of this project in breakout rooms after the presentation. So what does Design Connect offer to students? You're working on a real site with real clients in a real community. This means you get to work directly and cooperatively with people. It's really exciting to apply what you learn in class to a project where you're in the position to really make decisions. Like I said earlier, it's really choose your own adventure. You get out of it what you put in. So if you're interested in local arts revitalization or playground design or exploring new community engagement methods, Design Connect is a great place for you to explore those interests. This semester especially is calling us to explore new virtual engagement technologies. This is from one of our current projects where the client has already 3D modeled the site. We are also exploring emerging community engagement platforms. If you have something you want to try, you have the freedom to do so. Lastly, for me, I think Design Connect sharpens your project management skills as you move through different roles within the organization. The skills that a small group leader needs to lead the production of a product are very different from the skills a project manager needs to lead a team. Participating in Design Connect, therefore, gives you the space to develop those different skills to use in different contexts. I'm going to hand off to my friend Laura, who is going to talk about her work last semester.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura. I'm a second year MRP student as well. I was a project manager last semester. And so I'm just going to go through quickly what our team worked on. So as Hannah mentioned earlier, our team was pretty diverse. There were undergrads and grad students, and they were from the CRP program, landscape architecture, and there was a PAM student in our team. So we were working on Frantz Street. Frantz Street is a street in Vestal, which is a town next to Binghamton, an hour away from Ithaca. And the goal of this project was to revitalize Frantz Street to bring economic and cultural development. So for Vestal was dependent on IBM until IBM left. And then so after that, it's been a little bit slow economically, and there was a strip mall maybe 15 minutes away from this neighborhood area, but there wasn't really a lot of emphasis on local businesses. So the idea was our client wanted to revitalize the street and make it a center for cultural and economic activities. So we went, just to go through the process in our research, we did 2 site visits in the beginning with the team, and just kind of walk through the area. And then after that, the second one we did, and then the third one we did a community engagement meetings to make sure that whatever we were trying to come up with were relevant to the local community. And so we realized that, so originally we were thinking that it was going to be a design heavy project, but since we were kind of starting from scratch in terms of the development of that street, and through the experience walking through the area and trying to see how it feels to be a pedestrian walking around that area, we realized we had to do a different kind of approach. So we tried to do more of a holistic approach. And so our proposal were divided into 3 sections. The first one is the first one focused on streets and sidewalk accessories. This street is right next to a highway, so we wanted to make sure that people actually feel safe walking to create foot traffic, and then that would be supportive of economic development. So the first one was really heavy on how do we make sure that how do we make sure that we can slow down cars going through the area? How do we make sure that people can cross the street safely? Next. And then the second part of our proposal focuses on design guidelines and ideas. So we gave them a general strategies of things that can be improved along the streets. And then we gave a few samples of repurposing the designs for vacant buildings. So along that street, it was already a mix of commercial buildings and residentials, but there weren't really a clear differentiation. There were a lot of vacant buildings. And so we gave them a few ideas how to improve the facades of some buildings. And then we also give ideas on how to repurpose some buildings so it could include both residential and commercial purposes. And then the last one in our proposal, we focus on economic development ideas. So we split them into short-term business recommendations and long-term business recommendations. So sample of the short terms were they had a farmer's market that was going to have to move, and so we proposed them to have the farmer's market on that road, to also start discussions with local communities to bring them on the same page on developing the street. And then also creating a really clear guideline, like a booklet guidelines for businesses on how they can open their businesses. And then a longer term business recommendation would be creating incentives, tax incentives for local communities to open their business along the street. And then just to give a personal point of view on working for Design Connect, the reason why I wanted to join Design Connect was before this, I was already working for a while. And so going into academics, I kind of missed that project management experience. So that I joined Design Connect to get that feel again, to get that high from project management. And so based on my experiences, it was a really, really hands-off project. You really get to do whatever you want, you and your project manager. So it does require proactiveness. And it is nice that you get to work with a specific client with a specific purpose. So what you do could really be implemented. I think for us, I mean, obviously ours is new, so we still don't know where it's going to lead to, but our client already used our proposal to talk to the local town to discuss future development. And then it's nice because you get to work with people from different departments. And then so you can see how different people can bring in their different expertise. Probably one effect that happened because of COVID-19, we didn't get a midterm review. So I think our one touch point with professors was the final review, and it was really great. But I think if we got to have that interaction for the midterm review, it would definitely make our proposal, I feel like maybe it would elevate our proposal much better. So I would also say, you know, if you decide to join Design Connect, chase these professors, ask their advices. It would really improve your experience doing Design Connect.
So that moves to our upcoming projects this semester. We have 3 really exciting and different projects. We have a architectural project in Waterloo where we're taking a old building and turning it into a art center. And then we have 2 park redesign projects, one in Earlville and one in Norwich. So I'm going to list the project managers here for Waterloo, Norwich, and Earlville. I'm also going to link the application to join Design Connect if you are inspired to join a team. What your expectations are in Design Connect are weekly team meetings as well as sub-team meetings. So you'll likely be separated into a team based on your interests, whether it be community engagement or landscape architecture, or if it's building new renderings. You'll go into virtual client and community engagement. You will get to plan the community engagement event from the ground up. So this is really exciting, but that falls all on you. And then lastly, the more credits you take, the more time that you need to commit to doing Design Connect. So if you take it for 1 credit, expect around 3 hours of work. If you take 4 credits, imagine it to be like a normal workshop. How to get involved, sign up for Design Connect, it's CRP 5348. Submit the application, again, the link is below, and then you'll receive your team placement. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. My net ID is listed below, and thank you.
Terrific. I think all of us are head spinning after that kind of petricuccia of so many different projects and projects within projects. Thank you all for doing such a wonderful job of presenting the great work that you've done. We're going to break into small groups so that you all have a chance to talk. If you have questions of each other, we've mixed these in a way. Chris and Alviena have mixed them so that there's faculty, students, first years, masters, undergrads. So you can ask questions, hopefully, of the project people who are in that team within your group. You can also ask general questions about, you know, what experience or whatever it might be. If you have absolutely no questions, you can just use this time to say, hello, how was your summer? It's very nice to see you. And I would like each group to see if they can think of one question that they want to ask the larger group that they cannot answer within their own group. And if there is a larger question, we're going to come back and you can put it into the chat, and then we can pick a few to debate or discuss as a group. All right, so we'll have 10 minutes. They're going to send us all into the breakouts, and when the time is up, you're going to pop back up in here.
A quick note about the breakout rooms. So people are coming in and dropping out at the same time. So if you end up in a breakout room without one of the presenters in it, please come back to the main room, and then I'll direct you into a breakout room with someone who was part of the projects. All right, so should be good to go. Are you all having trouble joining the room?
I didn't get a notification for one.
Neither did I.
Neither did I.
What in the world? Okay, well, let me go ahead and just start tossing you into different rooms then. Are you, Rehan, are you having an issue joining the rooms? Actually, there's a couple of people still.
Alviana, don't worry about me.
Okay.
Thanks. This is me. Yeah, thanks.
No problem. You're welcome, Professor. Goodbye.
food security during COVID, which is actually we found the intern from the nutrition department, and he has interest in the individual nutritious. Now he moved his focus for the community level. And for that project, actually he and Terry interviewed a lot of organizations in the Tompkins County, how they deliver food during COVID to seniors, to families with children. And they finished a report, and now they send the report to all the interviewees during the project. So you can really see what you have done and how they link what they have done to the theory, like the cross-agency collaboration. And now the report get feedbacks from all the partners. And I think this mutual learning experience. We learn from them, they also learn from us. And I think they are going to keep doing the work. It's going to help them to realize how important their job is. And I think that part can push the community move forward.
Will you guys be involved with like the implementation of your recommendations at all moving forward? Or is it kind of just like you hand it to them and then?
Yeah, we hand to them, then we also get feedback. And for that part of job is almost done. We also have other project, which is analyzing the plans. Now the first part is to analyze their main areas of the plan. Then we are going to link the plan to our survey to see if there are any difference. Then we will talk back to the community. It's during the exchange of information. I think that is our way how to implement our research.
Troy, I'm curious, in your research, did you find that there's any sort of partnership or collaboration between Cornell students and these long-term care homes or nursing homes in terms of just programming and like life enrichment and just companionship?
I didn't find that part, but in our research, in our collaboration with Tompkins age-friendly team, we do have Cornell students working with them to help them identify the best practices. But I haven't seen that part you talk about. But there's a lot of connections, not only with Cornell, also they have some collaboration with Ithaca College. I think they collaborate a lot with Education Institute.
Yeah. That's great. I know that, aging communities are sort of a blind spot in our society. And I've spent, just from personal family situations, a lot of times in nursing homes this summer. And I've just noticed how lacking their life enrichment programming can be, and what an amazing opportunity that would be for students to come in and provide, share their skills. So I just wondered if you saw any of that happening.
And also in the project, we not only pay attention to older adults, we also pay attention to family with children. So in the fall,
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Sorry for all the conversations we just forcibly removed you from. I hope that was interesting and helpful. We had a lovely discussion, especially about child-friendly cities. And here we're going to just pose any outstanding questions that are left that people didn't get a chance to get an answer to. And I guess I'll start with the one from ours, and the other ones, if you don't mind typing it into the chat, and we'll just kind of consolidate some of those, given that we have about 10 minutes left. So the question we had unanswered out of ours, and George, as you're still here, is Jan was asking, what did you mean by frank conversations at your last community meeting? And I would add to that, is there anything that you did that encouraged or made it possible for there to be a frank conversation? George, you're muted.
There, yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, frank conversation is, or frank discussion is a diplomatic nicety for very pointed discussion, often about very difficult issues, okay? So, and again, it just happened. It's not something that we were consciously trying to promote. But what happened was our discussion of the history of economic development in Salamanca, the history of the downtown, sort of just stimulated the discussion, okay? And again, it was a very positive discussion, which was, you know, quite, for me, quite pleasant to be hearing it, knowing the depths of animosity that have existed in Salamanca in past years. Actually, I mentioned in one of the sessions, in our breakout room, you probably saw a lot of empty storefronts on Main Street in Salamanca. Part of the reason for that is in the negotiations for the new lease that Salamanca had to sign and individual property owners had to sign with the Seneca Nation of Indians. If you own property in Salamanca, you must make lease payments annually to the Seneca Nation of Indians. And the city makes a lump sum lease payment, okay? Business owners in downtown Salamanca simply refused, some business owners simply refused to participate. And they literally walked away from their properties, their commercial properties in downtown Salamanca, because they refused to sign the lease. The Seneca Nation of Indians has taken possession of many of those properties, and they're now trying to struggle to figure out how to get them filled. So.
Thank you. That's great. So we have a couple questions here. I'm going to pick a few, and the other ones, if folks don't mind answering the questions in the chat that I haven't picked, I'm going to do one last set here. So Sam has asked for Mitch and others, how do we connect and engage with communities in future workshops given constraints relating to COVID? And Kate and her group said, how receptive are communities to student design work? So maybe coupling those, some of you guys can answer those questions.
Well, we've been working with a new client, a new CDC in Cleveland, and we've been trying to answer this exact question, Sam. It's hard. I mean, a lot of it has to do with access and people's availability of technical pieces of infrastructure to get their voices heard. The folks we're working with, they own a radio tower in Cleveland. So radio messaging is going to be part of our outreach efforts. This is for a workshop in the spring. But we're also talking about surveys, both hand-delivered surveys and online surveys, Facebook groups, things that are not on Zoom all the time. So we're working through those and we're trying to be innovative. Another one is getting a bus and doing social distancing for kids in the community. And having them be distanced, socially distanced on a bus with masks, and taking them to places in the city that might inspire them or think differently about their neighborhood. So it's a great question.
If I can add to that, I think should be seen more as a change in methods rather than an elimination of a set of activities. So there is something obviously to be gained for us when we go to a community in terms of learning about the community. And the other thing that I think is very valuable is when students and even professionals see things or make connections that maybe the community hasn't. On the other hand, when Mike was talking about the work in Cleveland, he talked about the importance of using information that had already been collected by a community. And that was key. And so part of what Mitch is talking about is figuring out how to make the community better and more active partners in projects. So they are our feet on the ground, they are our eyes. It almost forces us to make them more part of the design team than we might otherwise. They become really the experts on their community.
And just quickly, we're trying to have project ambassadors from the community be part of our workshop. So hopefully that will happen in the spring. And we'll be paying them honorarium from various resources. And I think that would also make a great connection for folks working remotely to places on the ground.
I love that idea, Jeff, that it really changes it more towards a participatory action approach. I mean, there are so many projects where, planners and consultants are working in places that are remote, and it's really only the wealthiest clients that can afford to fly you all the time, a whole team of people to go there repeatedly. And so if we're to try to diversify the kinds of clients we are able to serve, part of that is learning and maximizing the use of these online tools. So this could actually be more helpful and opening path to future projects beyond flying often business class to these different places.
Can I answer Kate's question as well? Hannah, did you want to add something to that?
I was going to add, but I'll go after you.
Well, I was going to respond to Kate's question about the reception to student work. Because we talked about that a little bit as well. And I think it's very interesting because student work, of course, like professional work, has different roles. There's the student work, which is deliberately invited because they want to create an imaginary, as the privileged discourse of the moment has it, to really do something pie in the sky and to blow their mind and to make them think about problems in ways they haven't before. But the other thing that I found in my work is that sometimes students are received better than the professionals. So sometimes when I've been involved in preservation projects, I've sent in the students to make the case because they won't get yelled at, they won't get minimized, they won't get, treated somewhat the same way that the adults can be more fairly or freely treated. And actually they get listened to. And so several projects I've worked on, the clients came around after the students made their cases because they were seen in a way as more neutral, and the students often convey a level of enthusiasm for the project, for the people, for the place that is very genuine, and it comes across as very genuine and really makes an impact with clients. And what I've also found is that sometimes it takes a while to know whether or not a project's had an impact. Design Connect has a building now in Candor. I don't know, 6-7 years after that project happened, but it finally got funded and built. We worked in 2005 after Katrina in New Orleans on trying to get information about a flooded market to people, and 10 years later, it's one of the top tourist attractions in the city. It just sometimes takes time for these ideas to percolate through, but student work is a very effective way of changing minds and changing the conversation and changing the world.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. We are at time, but I do want to address a question that perhaps many, especially of our first year students or new students, have on their minds, which is what Rewa has asked. Do you recommend that we start with workshop classes and Design Connect immediately? Is it a good idea, or is it a good idea to wait till the second semester when we have a better idea of what to do and have had a chance to develop our skills? What do you suggest for people with no design background?
Design Connect is great for beginners because you can take it for 1 credit. So you can kind of get a taste at what you want to explore later in other workshops or throughout your time with Design Connect. I think it's also really great to start early with Design Connect because you can gain, again, different level of project management experience. So you can start as taking it for 1 credit on a small group team and work your way up to larger and more responsibilities. So for Design Connect, I would definitely say it's very open to first semester graduate students.
In general, I think we do encourage workshops at a later level when if it's the full workshop, but Hannah's absolutely right. Design Connect is a very nice way of wading in the water and getting a sense of how it works as you move forward.
There is a sequence for especially some of the workshops that are more design oriented that they recommend students have 2 out of 3, I think, Mitch. It is a site design with Tom Campanella. There's Zach Boggs design.
Graphic communications.
Graphic communications. And then there is Mitch Glass's urban design class. So they recommend that you have taken at least 2 out of those 3 in order to actually have the skills to then apply to the workshop.
And there is also the studio experience and workshop experience in New York City, which is available the 3rd semester in the MRP program or in the 4th year in the URS program.
There are also plenty of workshops that aren't design oriented, and you're welcome at any time. I'm teaching them now. I know Suzanne teaches one. So it's not just all about design here, folks.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
actually, yeah, Salamanca was unusual for me because it involved at least some design. Most of mine are actually policy oriented field workshops. So.
I did a workshop a couple years ago, and I think only 2 students were 2nd year out of 11, and we did award-winning work. So there's definitely first years should get involved when they find the right studio that moves their passions.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining in on our first colloquium. I hope to see you, if not next Friday, then certainly 2 Fridays from now at our next colloquium. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.